Jackson leaned back in the worn chair of his small ship's cockpit, staring out at the endless stretch of blackness punctuated by distant stars. The hum of the engines was comforting in a way that nothing else in his life had been for years. He had been traveling alone for months, mapping uncharted sectors for the Human Exploration Authority. The work was solitary, the silence deep, and the only voices he heard were the faint hums of the ship's AI, which he had affectionately named Eli. It had been years since he had last thought of Amara. She was a memory that seemed to fade in the crowded corridors of the colonies, a ghost that existed only in old holovids and the occasional dream. And yet, today, that memory came back sharply, unexpectedly, as though someone had struck a chord he didn't know was still there. The message had arrived in the middle of his routine diagnostics. It was short, almost cryptic. "She never stopped loving you, and neither did I." The sender was Leora. Jackson froze for a moment, his hand hovering over the console. Leora, his ex's sister, had always been a mystery to him. She was clever, confident, and unafraid of speaking her mind, qualities that had made her intriguing but also, at times, frustrating. And now, after years of silence, she was sending him messages that made his chest tighten. He stared at the words on the screen again. His mind raced. Why now? Why reach out after all this time? He could almost hear her voice whispering through the comm, a tone both tender and urgent. The message was followed by coordinates, far outside any known trade routes, pointing to a sector of space that had long been abandoned after the last interstellar war. Jackson's fingers moved automatically over the console. His curiosity battled his caution. He had been taught never to trust messages from unknown or unverified sources, especially ones that pulled at emotions better left buried. And yet, something about Leora's words called to him, tugging at a part of him that he had worked hard to ignore. After a long pause, he finally typed back, simple and measured. "Why tell me this now?" There was no immediate response. He leaned back in his chair again, trying to let the tension pass. The stars outside seemed indifferent to his turmoil, distant suns burning quietly in the infinite black. The silence pressed against him until, finally, a reply came. "Because time is running out. Come to the coordinates. You'll understand everything." Jackson sat back, running a hand through his hair. He felt the weight of the decision pressing on him. Leaving the safety of his current sector meant entering unknown space, risking encounters with rogue factions, space pirates, and remnants of the war that humanity had fought decades ago. Yet, something deeper, almost instinctual, told him he could not ignore this. He set the ship on a course toward the coordinates, his mind a swirl of memories and questions. Leora had always been unpredictable, but he knew her well enough to sense the sincerity behind her words. And if she was reaching out now, after all these years, it had to mean something serious. As the ship leapt into faster-than-light travel, Jackson allowed himself a moment to reflect on the past. Amara had been his anchor once. She was brilliant, fearless, and had a way of making him feel both understood and challenged at the same time. They had parted on uncertain terms, caught in a whirlwind of misunderstandings, ambitions, and the harsh realities of life in human colonies. And Leora? Well, Leora had been the quieter presence in those memories, observant, thoughtful, and always careful with her words. She had cared deeply for her sister, and over time, for him as well. But they had never crossed certain lines, never confronted the feelings that simmered quietly beneath polite conversation and shared missions. The hum of the engines faded into the background as Jackson stared at the stars, streaking past at faster-than-light speed. He felt a mixture of excitement, fear, and anticipation. Something was waiting for him. Something that might change the course of his life forever. Hours passed. The navigation systems worked flawlessly, guiding him through the empty stretches of space. Occasionally, a distant meteor belt flashed past, reminding him of the fragility of human technology and life itself. He thought about the colonies, how far humanity had spread across the stars, and how small each human seemed against the vastness of the universe. And yet, it was that very smallness, that determination to survive and connect, that made humans remarkable. Finally, the ship emerged from hyperspace near the coordinates Leora had sent. Before him stretched a forgotten sector, a cluster of derelict stations and silent planets that had once served as waypoints during the war. Dust and debris floated lazily through the void, catching the light of distant stars in jagged glints. Jackson slowed the ship, scanning the area carefully. Nothing moved. Nothing signaled life. And yet, he could feel it a presence. Not just physical, but emotional. Someone was waiting. He initiated a landing sequence on the nearest station, a crumbling relic orbiting a dead planet. Its hull was scarred, windows shattered, corridors silent. As the docking clamps engaged, Jackson's mind raced. He had no idea what Leora would say, no idea what he would find inside. But the pull of the message, the weight of unspoken truths, was too strong to resist. Inside the station, the air was stale but breathable. Lights flickered weakly, casting long shadows along the corridors. Jackson's footsteps echoed as he moved forward, senses alert. Every corner, every door, could hide something danger or revelation. And then he saw her. Leora stepped out from a side corridor, her face pale but resolute. Her eyes held the same intensity he remembered from years ago. A mixture of fear, hope, and something else. Something he recognized too late in the quiet moments of memory. Love. "Jackson," she said softly, her voice trembling just slightly. "You came." "I had to," he replied, trying to steady his voice. "Why now, Leora? After all these years, why tell me this now?" She took a step closer, and he could see the shadows of worry etched on her face. "Because," she said, her voice firming, "there are things you need to know. About Amara. About what happened. And about us. We don't have much time." Jackson swallowed hard, realizing that the quiet void outside the station mirrored the uncertainty in his heart. For years, he had thought he understood love, loyalty, and sacrifice. But standing here, in the cold corridors of a forgotten station, he knew he had only begun to scratch the surface. The silence stretched between them for a moment, heavy with unspoken words. Then Leora handed him a small data pad, its screen glowing faintly. "Everything is here," she said. "Read it. And then, you'll understand why I had to tell you now." End quote. Jackson took the pad, fingers trembling slightly. The hum of the station, the distant stars, the memories of Earth and lost love, everything seemed to converge in that single moment. He pressed the screen, and the first files opened, revealing messages, recordings, and evidence that promised to unravel the past he thought he knew. As he began to read, he realized that his journey was only just beginning. The stars outside the station had never seemed so alive, so full of possibility and danger. Humanity had spread across the cosmos, faced countless threats, and survived where others might have failed. And now, Jackson understood that survival wasn't just about strength or skill, it was about courage, connection, and the willingness to face the truths of the heart. The echoes of the past, the whispers of love long hidden, were pulling him forward. And for the first time in years, Jackson felt a spark of hope that humanity, with all its flaws and passions, could not only survive but thrive, even in the coldest reaches of space. Leora led him down a winding passage that seemed older than the colonies themselves. Dust floated in the weak beams of light, and the faint smell of old machinery hung in the air. Jackson's mind raced with questions. Why had she contacted him now? Why here? And what had happened to Amara? Finally, they reached a large control room, half destroyed, panels sparking, and monitors cracked. Leora gestured toward a console still operational. "The files I sent you on the pad are all here too," she said. "But the station holds more. Evidence that can't be erased. That will tell the whole story." Jackson set the datapad on the console and tapped a few commands. A holographic screen flickered to life, displaying images of Amara, young and smiling, her uniform crisp and gleaming under the light of the colonies. The images shifted to more recent ones, Amara in a war-torn sector, holding a device that seemed to pulse with energy. "She was protecting this," Leora said softly. "Not just herself, not just you, but something that could decide the fate of human colonies." Jackson stared at the screen, disbelief tightening his chest. He had known Amara as a brilliant mind, someone who could solve the impossible with calm precision. But he had never imagined that her courage would place her at the center of interstellar conflicts. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" he asked, voice low. "Why keep me out of this?" Leora shook her head. "Because it was dangerous. Because if you knew, you could have been targeted. And because I didn't know if I could trust you with the truth yet. Some things are too heavy to share until the right moment." Jackson felt a mixture of frustration and understanding. Leora had always been careful, protective, and yes, her words carried the weight of emotions she had kept hidden for years. He remembered the subtle glances, the small gestures, the quiet presence in times he had not noticed. And now it all seemed urgent, unavoidable. They spent hours sifting through the files. Each record revealed more of Amara's final days before she vanished. She had been investigating a rogue faction, a group of humans who sought to control technology powerful enough to manipulate entire planets. Her discoveries had made her a target, and the data she carried, the one thing she had trusted to no one but Leora, held secrets that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. Jackson felt a chill run down his spine. The danger Amara faced was unimaginable, yet she had faced it alone. And the thought of her struggling, fighting for humanity, brought a tight knot to his chest. Leora placed a hand gently on his arm. "She trusted you," Leora said quietly. "Even if she couldn't be here, even if she had to fight alone, she believed you could continue what she started." Jackson nodded, swallowing hard. The weight of responsibility pressed on him. For years, he had drifted through space, focused on mapping stars and exploring new worlds. But now, the mission was no longer scientific. It was personal. And it was human. "We can't stay here," Leora said suddenly, breaking his thoughts. "The faction knows someone is looking for her records. They've been tracking communications from old stations like this. If we stay too long, we'll be their next target." Jackson stood, glancing out at the dark planet below. "Then we move." Leora pulled up a star map on the console. Several points blinked red, possible locations of hidden faction bases. "These are the most likely, but one stands out." She pointed to a remote asteroid field, far from human colonies. "If they want to hide something, it would be here." Amara's final messages suggest this is where she went. And where she left the most important evidence. Jackson frowned. "We don't know what's waiting for us there." "That's the point," Leora said firmly. "We'll have to be ready for anything. But it's the only way to finish what Amara started." As they prepared to leave the station, Jackson felt a strange mixture of fear and determination. He had always believed humans were fragile, lost in the vastness of space. But now he understood something deeper. Humans had an indomitable spark. The courage to act, to fight, and to protect each other, even when hope seemed impossible. They boarded Jackson's ship, and the engines roared to life. The station shrank behind them, a relic of the past, while the stars stretched endlessly ahead. Leora sat beside him, checking weapons, scanning systems, her expression a mix of focus and subtle concern. Jackson stole a glance at her, noticing how her hair caught the light from the console, how her eyes reflected determination and worry at the same time. "Do you ever Think about what could have been? He asked quietly, not sure why the words escaped him. Leora's fingers paused on the console. She looked at him, not with anger or embarrassment, but with honesty. Every day, she admitted. But right now, it's about what can still be. What must still be done? Jackson nodded. There was no time for longing or regrets. The galaxy was wide, dangerous, and unpredictable. Yet, even in the darkness, he felt a spark of something that made the risk worthwhile: human connection, the will to protect, and the courage to act when it mattered most. The journey through the asteroid field was treacherous. Debris floated unpredictably, remnants of old mining operations and destroyed ships. Jackson navigated carefully, the ship groaning under stress as he threaded through narrow gaps. Leora monitored sensors, calling out warnings and adjustments with precision. Together, they moved as a single unit, trust and instinct guiding them. Suddenly, a burst of light flashed ahead. Sensors registered a cloaked vessel, emerging from behind a drifting asteroid. It was one of the rogue faction's patrols, scanning the area for intruders. Jackson tensed, readying the ship's defensive systems. "They're scanning for the data," Leora said calmly. "We can't let them detect us." Jackson activated the ship's stealth systems, the engines dimming and the hull blending with the surrounding darkness. The patrol vessel passed dangerously close, its sensors sweeping over the ship. But for a moment, it seemed the human determination, their ingenuity and courage, had outmatched technology. When the patrol drifted past, Jackson exhaled slowly. That was too close. Leora gave a small, tight smile. Hours passed in tense silence, broken only by communications with distant satellites and the occasional scan for threats. As they approached the coordinates from Amara's final message, a sense of anticipation hung between them. This place, hidden in the heart of the asteroid field, was a crossroads of human courage and ambition, and soon they would uncover truths that had been buried for too long. Finally, they arrived at a massive, camouflaged structure anchored among jagged asteroids. Its design was alien in its symmetry, yet unmistakably human in its purpose. A research facility, abandoned but not empty. Leora's voice was quiet, almost reverent. "This is it," she said, "where Amara left everything, where we'll find the evidence, and where we'll face whatever remains of the faction." Jackson felt his heart hammer in his chest. Fear and determination mingled, but he knew this was the path he had chosen. Humanity had survived countless dangers, pushed through the unknown, and thrived in the vastness of space. And now, he and Leora were about to carry that spirit forward. "Ready?" he asked. Leora nodded, gripping her weapon tightly. "Always." Together, they exited the ship, moving cautiously toward the facility. The shadows of the asteroid field stretched around them, silent witnesses to human courage and the quiet hope that even in the coldest darkness, humans could prevail. And as Jackson stepped onto the first platform, he felt it the unshakable truth that had brought him here. The will to protect, to fight, and to honor those who had loved him and risked everything for the future. This was more than survival. This was humanity, unbroken, fearless, and ready to face whatever shadows the stars held. Its metal hull reflected faint light from distant stars, and the surface was scarred with old impacts. Jackson and Leora moved cautiously across the metal platforms, their footsteps echoing softly in the void. Each creaking panel, each loose pipe reminded them that the structure had been abandoned for years. Yet somehow, it still held secrets. And secrets could be dangerous. "This place is bigger than I imagined," Jackson whispered, scanning the complex. "And silent. Too silent." "Exactly," Leora replied, her voice calm but tense. "Silence is rarely empty in places like this. Be ready for anything." They entered through a side airlock. The inner corridors were dim, lit only by emergency lights that flickered intermittently. Dust swirled lazily in the thin beams of light, disturbed by their movement. Jackson's heart pounded in his chest. Every step felt heavy with anticipation. The first rooms they entered were laboratories, frozen in time. Equipment lay scattered, holovids blinking occasionally, as if waking from a long sleep. Jackson's eyes widened at the remnants of human ingenuity, devices for energy research, storage units filled with data cores, holographic projectors, still faintly humming. "This must have been where she worked," Leora said, her voice barely above a whisper. She ran her fingers over a cracked console, her movements careful, almost reverent. Everything she did, everything she protected, it started here. Jackson nodded. Memories of Amara flooded him. Her determination, her brilliance, and the fierce fire in her eyes when she spoke of protecting humanity. He felt a tight knot in his chest. She had fought alone against forces that could have destroyed entire colonies. And he hadn't been there to help. They moved deeper into the facility, following the coordinates Amara had left. Finally, they reached a reinforced door, sealed with ancient security protocols that still resisted modern decryption attempts. Leora knelt beside it, fingers flying across her portable console, bypassing layers of encryption with careful precision. "She left us a key," Leora murmured. "I think she trusted only us to open this." With a final beep, the door slid open, revealing a large chamber filled with intricate machinery. At the center was a pedestal, holding a sleek, glowing device, pulsing faintly with energy. Holographic displays hovered around it, showing schematics, codes, and cryptic notes in Amara's handwriting. Jackson stepped closer, feeling the hum of energy in the air. Leora's eyes glimmered with awe and determination. This is what she protected. The faction wants it because it can control planetary shields, communication grids, even weather patterns. It's powerful enough to give them control over colonies. And Amara, she hid it here, knowing no one else could find it without the key she left us. Jackson ran his fingers over the device's smooth surface, feeling the quiet strength of human ingenuity. He realized then that this was more than a tool. It was a testament to humanity's resilience. Even in the face of war, isolation, and danger, someone had dared to create something remarkable. Something meant to protect rather than destroy. Suddenly, the hum of the facility changed. The lights flickered faster, and Jackson's sensors picked up movement outside the chamber. The rogue faction had found them. "They're here," Leora said, drawing her weapon. "They knew we were coming." Jackson's pulse quickened. "How many?" "Too many to fight head-on. But we can use the environment to our advantage." Leora's mind raced. Analyzing the chamber and its potential for defense, she spotted a series of conduits leading to emergency power lines. "If we can overload the circuits, we might buy time to escape with the device." Jackson nodded. "Then let's make it count." They moved swiftly, Leora setting charges along the conduits, while Jackson monitored the doors. The faction's soldiers appeared, moving cautiously but confidently, armed and ready to take the device by force. Jackson's heart pounded, but he reminded himself of something he had learned long ago. Humans survived because of courage, intelligence, and teamwork. They would not fail now. The first wave of intruders entered the chamber. Jackson fired his plasma pistol with precision, forcing them to take cover. Leora activated the charges, the hum of energy in the room building toward a crescendo. Sparks flew, panels overheated, and the lights flickered wildly. The faction soldiers were caught off guard, giving Jackson and Leora the chance they needed. "Now!" Leora shouted. They grabbed the device and ran toward the side exit, weaving through debris and broken machinery. Behind them, the facility groaned, metal bending and sparks raining from damaged conduits. As they reached the hangar, Jackson activated the ship's shields just in time. The facility erupted in controlled chaos, a mix of energy bursts and collapsing structures. They had survived the first attack, but he knew it wasn't over. The faction would pursue them, relentless in their desire to seize the device. Once aboard the ship, Jackson set a course for a nearby uninhabited system. Leora sat beside him, catching her breath, eyes wide with adrenaline. "We did it," she said softly. "We have it." "Amara did it first," Jackson replied, looking at the glowing device. "We're just continuing her work." Leora nodded, a small smile breaking through the tension. "She trusted us. That's what matters. That's what makes humans human. Courage, loyalty, and the will to protect each other. That's stronger than any weapon." Jackson felt a deep sense of awe. The device pulsed gently between them, a symbol of human ingenuity and resilience. He realized that survival wasn't just about strength or technology, it was about connection, trust, and the courage to face danger together. Hours passed as they navigated toward a secure location. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly, indifferent and silent. Yet inside the ship, Jackson and Leora felt the pulse of human spirit, determination, hope, and the unyielding drive to protect what mattered most. "Why tell me now?" Jackson finally asked, breaking the silence. Leora's expression softened. "Because waiting too long can be deadly. Because the truth needs to be shared, even if it's hard. And because I never stopped caring. About you, about Amara, about what we have to do. We're stronger together, and it's time you knew that." Jackson looked at her, emotions swirling. He had spent years alone, drifting through space, avoiding attachments and memories. Now, with the weight of responsibility and the echo of old love pressing on him, he realized that humans thrived because they dared to care, to trust, and to fight for each other. The journey ahead was dangerous. The rogue faction would not give up easily. And the galaxy was vast, filled with threats they could not yet imagine. But Jackson felt something he hadn't felt in years: purpose. And beside him, Leora shared that same purpose, a silent promise that they would face the darkness together. As the ship jumped into hyperspace, leaving the facility and its collapsing corridors behind, Jackson allowed himself a moment to breathe. The device lay securely in their care, evidence of Amara's courage and vision. Humanity, he realized, had survived against odds far greater than this. And now, it was their turn to continue the legacy. Outside the ship, stars streaked past in brilliant lines. Inside, two humans prepared to face a galaxy filled with danger, hope, and the unshakable spirit that made them, and all of humanity, extraordinary. "This isn't just about survival," Leora said quietly, looking at Jackson. "It's about proving that humans can endure, even when everything seems impossible." Jackson nodded, a faint smile on his lips. "Then let's make sure the galaxy never forgets that." For the first time in years, he felt a sense of clarity and determination. The device was not just a tool, it was a symbol, a reminder that humanity, even scattered across countless worlds, could rise above fear, fight for what mattered, and protect each other no matter the cost. And in the silent hum of the ship's engines, with stars blazing past in hyperspace, Jackson knew one truth above all: humans were unstoppable when they fought with heart, courage, and unity. The stars waited. The galaxy challenged them. And humanity, relentless and fearless, was ready. Jackson's hands gripped the controls as the ship glided through hyperspace. The glowing device rested securely in its containment pod, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. Leora sat beside him, her eyes scanning the star maps, her expression focused but calm. For a brief moment, the galaxy seemed quiet, as if it were holding its breath, waiting for what would come next. They had survived the first encounter with the rogue faction, But Jackson knew better than to believe it was over. The faction would pursue them, relentlessly. Their mission was no longer just about protecting the device, it was about protecting humanity itself. "We're approaching the coordinates for the safe system," Leora said, pointing to a remote cluster of planets. "Few know of it. It's shielded, isolated, perfect for hiding the device while we plan our next move." Jackson nodded. "We'll need to move quickly. Once the faction realizes we escaped, they'll hunt us even harder." Hours passed as they navigated through dense asteroid fields and dark nebulae. Every blip on the sensors, every faint signal, made their hearts race. The galaxy was vast, but it was also dangerous. Yet, as Jackson watched Leora work, he realized that this was what made humans remarkable, the ability to remain calm, clever, and determined, even in the face of overwhelming odds. When they finally arrived at the safe system, a small, hidden planet awaited them. Its surface was rugged, covered with jagged cliffs and deep canyons. It was inhospitable, but perfect for concealing something of such importance. Jackson guided the ship down carefully, landing in a narrow canyon where sensors could be easily shielded from detection. "This will work," Leora said, a small smile breaking through her focus. "No one will find it here unless they know exactly where to look." Jackson exhaled slowly, relief washing over him. "Good. Then, let's secure the device and plan our next step." They moved to the containment pod, carefully transferring the device into a reinforced chamber deep within the canyon. The air hummed with quiet energy, the faint glow of the device illuminating the rocky walls. Jackson felt a sense of awe. Amara had trusted them with something extraordinary, something that could change the course of human history. As they worked, Leora spoke softly. "You know, I never stopped believing in you. In all of us. Humans. We're capable of amazing things when we work together." Jackson paused, meeting her eyes. "I never knew," he admitted. "Not until now. I thought I understood courage, loyalty, love. But seeing what Amara did, what you're doing, it's more than I imagined." Leora's hand brushed his briefly, a small gesture that carried years of unspoken emotions. "We fight because we care. Because we can't stand by when the galaxy faces danger. That's human strength. Jackson. Not just technology. Not just weapons us. Our courage. Our hearts. Our willingness to act." Jackson nodded. She was right. Humans had survived countless wars, traversed light years of space, and built colonies on distant planets. They had endured alien threats, natural disasters, and political betrayals. And yet, it was their determination, their ability to care for one another, and their refusal to surrender that had carried them forward. Suddenly, the sensors beeped urgently. A fleet of rogue faction ships had tracked them to the system. Jackson's pulse quickened, but fear did not take hold. He and Leora had prepared for this. They were not running blindly. Humanity's ingenuity and determination would be their shield. "They're here," Leora said, her voice steady. "But we have the advantage. This terrain. They won't know where to strike first." Jackson took a deep breath, feeling a surge of determination. "Then let's remind them why humans survive against all odds." The battle began with a sudden roar of engines and the flash of energy weapons. The rogue faction's ships fired at the canyon walls, attempting to flush them out. Jackson's ship dodged skillfully, using the narrow terrain to break line of sight. Leora coordinated their defenses, guiding them through the canyon with precision. Explosions rocked the cliffs around them, sending rocks tumbling down into the path of enemy drones. The faction was relentless, but human ingenuity and teamwork were sharper. Jackson deployed decoy drones, creating false signals and traps that misled the attackers. Leora hacked into the faction's communications, feeding false data to confuse and delay them. The tide of the battle shifted in their favor. Each move, Each counterattack was calculated, showing the ingenuity that made humans formidable, even in the darkest corners of space. Jackson realized that it wasn't brute force that gave them an edge, it was strategy, courage, and the unyielding will to protect what mattered. Hours later, the rogue faction began to retreat, unable to overcome the combined human tactics and the treacherous terrain. Jackson and Leora watched the last ships disappear into the darkness of space. The canyon was quiet again, save for the hum of the ship and the faint pulse of the glowing device. Leora exhaled, letting tension slip from her shoulders. "We did it," she said softly. "The device is safe, and so are we." Jackson nodded, a mixture of relief and pride filling him. Amara would be proud. And, "I finally understand why you told me everything, now." Leora smiled, a mixture of warmth and something deeper unspoken emotions finally given voice. "Because humans are stronger together," she said. "Because love, courage, and loyalty matter. And because I had to tell you before it was too late." Jackson reached out, taking her hand. "Then, let's make sure humanity remembers this. Not just the danger we face, but the strength we carry in our hearts, in our actions." They spent the next few days securing the facility, encrypting the data, and creating contingency plans. The device would be hidden, but accessible to those who needed it to protect human colonies. The danger was not gone, but humanity had survived once again through intelligence, courage, and unbreakable spirit. In the quiet moments, Jackson and Leora reflected on everything that had brought them here. The memories of Amara, the cryptic message, and the journey across stars filled with danger and discovery. They realized that the galaxy was vast, full of challenges and threats. But humans had a unique strength, the ability to endure, adapt, and rise, even when the odds were impossible. "This is just the beginning," Jackson said, looking out at the stars beyond the canyon. "There will always be threats, always challenges. But humanity, we survive, we adapt, we protect what matters." Leora squeezed his hand gently. "And we never give up. That's what makes us extraordinary." As the sun rose over the jagged cliffs of the hidden planet, light spilling across the canyon floor, Jackson felt a profound sense of hope. Humanity had faced darkness before, and it had always found a way to endure. Now, with the device secured and the rogue faction defeated for the moment, they could continue to protect their colonies, explore new worlds, and prove that courage, loyalty, and love were the truest forms of power. Jackson and Leora stood together on the platform, watching the stars glint in the sky. They had faced danger, uncovered truths, and survived against impossible odds. And in that moment, the unshakable spirit of humanity shone brighter than any star. "Ready for whatever comes next?" Leora asked, her eyes shining with determination. Jackson smiled, feeling the weight of responsibility but also the thrill of possibility. The galaxy awaited, vast, mysterious, and full of challenges. But humanity, with courage, ingenuity, and heart, was unstoppable. And together, Jackson and Leora would continue the legacy honoring Amara's sacrifice, defending what mattered, and proving that even across light years, the spirit of humanity could never be broken. For the first time in years, Jackson felt complete not because the danger was gone, but because he understood something deeper. The power of connection, the strength of trust, and the enduring courage that made humans extraordinary. And in the quiet hum of their ship, surrounded by the endless stars, he knew the truth. Humanity would always triumph, no matter the darkness, no matter the odds, because humans had something no enemy could ever take away: heart.